Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
Brash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Question everything.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Open your eyes.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Challenge the opposition.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist worldwide.
I have to start by saying a huge thank you out to everybody who for so long has supported this show. It looks as if for the month of October 2013, we are going to finish the month with over 600,000 downloads. And that does not include the YouTube. That's just from Blog Talk Radio and iTunes and all of the different feeds that Blog Talk Radio serves. Thank you so much for listening to the show, for supporting it, for coming by every single week. You know, we've got the live listeners who come in on Tuesday nights and they're in the chat room and they're hanging out with us. And then, of course, the thousands who listen in archive. You know, when I started the show in 2010, it was just a chance to connect and sort of scratch the broadcaster itch. I'd done radio for a long time and felt like there might be a need. And to see the show just resonate with people, to see so many say, you know, I was encouraged by the show, or I was entertained by this story, or I learned a lot about this particular religion from this special guest, or, you know, it was just sort of the right subject at the right time in my own life. Some people say they listen at home. Some people are at the office. I've got people who work behind the wheel of a truck and they're driving coast to coast listening to the radio shows. Thank you. I mean, thank you so much. Without you, this show is nothing. And it means so much to me that you have been here since 2010. And I have no idea what's going to happen next, but I'll take 600,000 for sure. You know, and what's really exciting is that it's not just infidels who are listening to the show. I know this because they send me messages all the time. And I have atheists who will tell me as well, look, I listen with some people. They listened to the Ghost Story show and thought that was fun, or they were curious about this religion that you covered and they happened to kick in and now they're just hanging out. They come back every single week. I've got believers, I've got non-believers, I've got all manner of listeners out there and they're all just part of the conversation, which is really what we want. Look, if we're only talking to ourselves, then we accomplish not a whole lot. It really isn't a good idea to think that there's a variety of people out there participating in the conversation, if nothing else, to sort of see the non-believer, the atheist, in 3 dimensions. So many people are predisposed to paint the atheist with this brush of caricature. Rudderless, sad, pathetic, without morals, without joy, without purpose, without any marrow to their lives at all, that these atheists, and for them to be able to listen in and hear just how much fun we have every single week, you know, and we do. It's totally genuine. And tonight's topic is a fun topic as we continue in the month of October in the Halloween theme. We're talking about rational people and irrational fears. Now, most of us have them. I was going to say we all have them. I don't know if we all do. Some people may have completely conquered phobia in their own lives. Kind of doubt it. I think we're all human. We've all got that thing that no matter how logical we try to be, all of a sudden, this one thing just gives us the shivers. And I've had messages from all over. I'll be taking your calls on the subject tonight, too, if you want to talk about your irrational fear, how it started, how it affects you, if there's a way out of it. You know, we'll talk about that. You know, I had a message from Kim, and she said her phobia is frogs. She says she can't stand them. Now, Kim's a friend, right? She's been part of the Thinking Atheist audience and community for a long time. And I had a chance to meet her and her husband out at the Reason rally. And so when I saw the email from her, I knew it was going to be good. So, of course, I had to reply to the email, and I sent her the picture of the nastiest frog. This big, sinister-looking frog. She said, I can't stand them. I'm teased by my friends because I believe that frogs are, quote, unpredictable, which is the number one reason I can't stand them. I loathe frogs so much that I intentionally went to boot camp. She's military, by the way. Went to boot camp in the winter so I wouldn't have to lie in a foxhole in the middle of a hot, sweltering summer night in South Carolina for fear that I'd have to share it with several large South Carolina toads. The horror. You're going to laugh, and I am too, but it's the hopping. My grinning has already turned into a grimace, and I'm feeling squeamish to my stomach at the mere thought of a frog hopping. Therein lies unpredictability, the hopping. I can never tell where they're going to go, when they're going to do it, how far they're going to hop, in what direction. I almost passed out because some stupid frog finally hopped while I tried to get by on a sidewalk, and he hopped right into my leg. I've been chased by people with frogs in their hands who think it's funny to see me freak out and run. Those who know me well also realize all bets are off if they decide to freak me out with a frog. Because if they don't have any fears of their own, they'll soon have a rational fear of me. Thanks so much, Kim, for the message. Colin said, I have a few irrational fears. My biggest one is deja vu. I get it once or twice a week, and when I do, it lasts longer than the average episode, or so I'm told. It freaks me out when I'm in a situation that I know is new, but still feels familiar. My other, perhaps more entertaining fear is the fear one day my fingerprints will be found on a murder weapon, and I will be the sole suspect in a murder investigation. I intellectually know these two irrational fears, but my neurosis does not allow me to stop worrying about them both. Colin, I hope the murderer thing is an irrational fear. Yeah, I think we all hope that. By the way, there's several phobias out there. Androphobia is the fear of men. Haphophobia, H-A-P-H, or hophophobia, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, is the fear of being touched by anyone. Ichthyophobia is the fear of fish. Eating fish, dead fish, you're swimming in a lake, a fish brushes by you. Yeah, that's a thing for some people. Astrophobia is a fear of thunder and lightning. Ombrophobia, the fear of rain. People are afraid of rain? Emetophobia is the fear of vomiting. Gelatophobia is the fear of being laughed at. Gymnophobia is the fear of nudity. And taphophobia, T-A-P-H-O, phobia, the fear of being buried alive. Do you ever see the movie Buried? It's one of those films that starts out in a coffin, and it ends in a coffin. The entire film takes place in a coffin, buried somewhere. And, you know, I thought it was an ingenious little movie. It's certainly not for everybody, but if you have a fear, if you're claustrophobic, or you have the fear of being buried alive, it's probably your worst nightmare. It's probably your absolute worst nightmare. I've got Cap on Skype. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
That was quick. I just called and I got in. I think just arachnophobia is something that, I've always been afraid of spiders during the summertime. Like, if I go outside to my car in the middle of summer, at nighttime especially, I always make sure that I avoid the tree because you have no idea if there's like some big spider on there, because we used to live really close to a farm, so there's always that chance that I may have a problem with spiders, so I like to avoid them. I don't know why, though, because they end up killing a lot of the other insects, so they can help in a lot of ways, but I just have a really bad fear of them.
I have a fear of walking into a spider web. When you walk around a corner and you obviously aren't going to see it. You walk face first into the web. Now you're doing that sort of post-spider web dance thing where you're flipping around. You're flipping around and you're trying to, you're trying to get it off of you. You're wondering, was there a spider attached to the web? Is it crawling somewhere on my body and I can't see it and I will discover it later? And of course, when you get into a spider web, you never feel like you got all of it off of you. You feel like you always missed a piece of webbing somewhere. That's a thing for me. Does that resonate with you too?
Yeah, exactly. And you never know how big they are, because, when I was younger, a couple of times I ran right into it and it was like crawling over me. And, it's probably not even going to bite me, but you always have that fear that something like that's going to happen. The other thing is, I was always afraid of ghosts as a child too. Like, I always had to have my nightlight on when I was a lot younger because I always had this, weird fear that, somebody was out to get me or something, and I always wanted to cover over with the sheets and stuff like that when I was younger. But, and that sort of thing always continued to be a part of my life. I would always be afraid of things. But I think once I became a skeptic, and once I, realized that this stuff isn't real, and as I became an atheist and more in tune with understanding how we have all these things that are going on in our heads, that we see patterns where there aren't really patterns and stuff like that, that fear just completely diminished because the more I learned about the natural world, the less I became afraid of things like that. So being a skeptic allowed me to overcome those fears, I think.
Absolutely. Hey, man, thanks for a great call. I do appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good day, then.
Did you know that there is a condition called, I don't know if I can even say it, ITHYPHALLO phobia? I'll try it. Outhouphobia. It is the fear of erections. Defined as a, quote, persistent, abnormal, and unwarranted fear of an erect penis. To add insult to an already distressing condition, most fear of erection therapies take months or years and sometimes even require the patient to be exposed repeatedly to their fear. It has a number of other names: medorthophobia and phallophobia. The problem often, I'm not making this up, the problem often significantly impacts the quality of life. It can cause panic attacks and keep people apart from loved ones and business associates. Tony said she has a fear of grasshoppers. Oh, had a bad experience as a kid with one that jumped down my dress and got stuck. And before anyone calls me a pansy, have you seen the grasshoppers we get here in the South? I had a friend from up north that thought I was nuts till she moved down here and saw her first finger-length Satan insect. Paul said bees. Afraid of bees? Once while hiking, I accidentally stepped on a hornet's nest, so as hornets would be expected to do... Wait, I thought we were talking about bees. As hornets would be expected to do, they swarmed me and stung me several times. I even tried to run away, but those bastards chased me for about 100 yards. Needless to say, I deserved to get stung for stepping on the nest, and any rational person would know that A, don't step on hornets' nests and you'll be fine, and B, bees aren't hornets. Okay, there it is. Thanks. My irrational fear is similar to my PTSD from Afghanistan. Whoa, that's heavy, except it's PHSD, post-hornet stress disorder. Now, anytime I see a bee or a wasp or even a big fly, pretty much anything that resembles a hornet, I freeze up in fear and immediately look for an escape route. Well, I don't blame you. There's a house next door to my house. The story, as far as I know, is the husband and wife divorced, and she stayed in the house and tried to sell the house, and so it's been going on and on. And eventually, I think the bank took the house, and she's gone. I don't know. I didn't know this person, but so the house essentially is, I don't know if it's going through foreclosure or whatnot, but it's a few houses down, and there's nobody in it. We had a major windstorm a few months back. It was this weird straight line winds event that blew the whole city down. I mean, it's crazy. there was damage all over the place. We had to replace shingles all over the roof, and so did so many others. And that house was no exception. It actually ripped off probably a 6 foot by 6 foot sort of section of shingles on the front of the house and damaged some parts of the roof and other parts. But because of where it is at, apparently, and I don't think it's foreclosure, something else is going on. No one has yet fixed it. And it's been there for weeks. So the house, even though it's a pretty new house in a pretty new neighborhood, has a little bit of a sort of a, not dilapidated look, but it looks worn. It looks like something that the house has been punished. All right, and there's a window on the west side of the house, second floor. Now, I can see it from my office. If I was to crack the blinds, I could see it from right here in my chair. Now, I know there's nobody in the house. My rational brain knows this. But when I look out the window and see that window, I see a human head. I see a human shape. It stands right about the place where, say, a 6 foot person might stand in an upper floor room. Proportionally, it's about the size of a human head. Never moves, and it's just a shadow. I know, logically, I know that there's nothing in there. It doesn't even make sense if something was in there, that it would be in the exact same spot, not moving a centimeter for weeks. But I have to keep the blinds closed. I cannot stand it. Because that sumbitch is looking at me. Look, I'll do it now. I'm going to look out the window. Oh my God! Right now, it is there. The head is there. It's a wonder I get to sleep at night. Now, what is that a phobia of? I don't know. It's not a phobia of shadows, because I'm not afraid of shadows. It's not a phobia about empty homes. It's this weird sort of scenario of specific things that all add up to a new phobia. An irrational fear of an empty house where the sun hits the window at just the right time of day, which happens to be at the time I do the radio show, to resemble a human head that's watching me from the abyss. What do you call that? It's terrifying. It's just terrifying. I told everybody online, I think I may have told the radio listeners last year, we normally do like fear-based stuff every October. Some skeptics get pissed off that we talk about these types of things, being rationalist, and I just say, have we met? You got the wrong show if you're expecting me to be serious about everything all the time, right? This isn't a textbook. We're telling stories and having some fun together from time to time. But I have had these, ever since I was a kid, I've had this phobia of being in the water. And you're treading water, right? You're up, you're surfaced, you're just kicking underneath the surface of the water, and there's some huge object underneath you. And I don't mean something even necessarily organic, like I'm a scuba diver, used to do a lot of it. I'm wonderful under the water. There's no fear. I took to it naturally. Love it. I don't do it much anymore, but at the time, loved it. Wreck diving, cavern diving, no worries. Not even a blink, no problem. I surface waiting to get on the boat. I'm terrified. I'm sitting there, you're right? I've inflated the BC, waiting for my turn to go up the ladder. I'm sitting there, kind of, the waves are coming by, and at any moment, something underneath me is going to get me. Now, I think I've traced the origin of that phobia back to a film that came out in 1977. I don't know if it was a film that released in theaters or if it was on. I remember I saw it on television when I was a kid. And they used to do every year a disaster film called Airport. It was Airport 77, 78, 79. They actually had the year after the title of the movie, Airport 78. And then they have a different scenario where a passenger plane went down and had to be rescued, or the pilots had a heart attack, the flight attendant had to land the plane, something like that. This is before the movie Airplane came out and all of it became a punchline. Back then they played it serious. And In that film, the plane crashed into the ocean and managed to stay structurally intact. But it sank like a stone well under the waves. And so the rescue team had to go, take scuba divers, go down into the darkness of the ocean. I think it was at night, which is even worse. And they had to sort of thread these cords with balloons on them around or underneath the plane somehow, and then lift it up. And of course, there's this image of the plane coming up, foot by foot by foot by foot by foot toward the surface. A 747 under the surface of the ocean, coming up to the top. Something about that scarred me, and ever since, even if I'm in a swimming pool, I'm cool. But there's a tiny little section, this little apartment in the back of my brain that for some reason, no matter how I reason it out, goes, this is screwed up. Something's going to get you. That's why we call them irrational fears. I had a message in from Morgan. Morgan's afraid of gray aliens. Aliens that are the color gray. No, she says. I don't believe they're real. But try telling that to my fight or flight response. What do you mean flight? Have you seen them? Morgan says if I see them on TV or drawings of them, I have panic attacks. Really? Nightmares. I can't watch movies or anything if they had that kind of alien. I'm trying to think of films that have like the gray alien. Because the alien films, that's a whole other ball game. That's not the little green men thing. I'm trying to think of a film, not Mars Attacks, no, another film that has those type of, you know what I'm saying, with the big eyes and the bulbous head and the narrow chin, and they're sort of that grayish green color. It'll come to me as soon as the show is over, I'm sure. Jennifer said, I'm afraid of water towers. Go ahead and judge, she says. Everyone else does. I avoid driving near them. I've taught myself not to look directly at them and even plan where to live based on how far away from them my new home would be. I can't find a name for this phobia, she says. Every time I approach anyone with questions about how to label this, I'm either met with disbelief or am thanked for providing entertainment. Often I am laughed into the next county. The worst part of this is that my kindergarten-aged son has developed a fascination bordering on obsession with water towers as a direct result of my fear. I am doomed, she says. Where the water tower is geographically located in your area would be part of your decision-making process on a new home? Really? I mean, I can understand if you didn't want to be under a water tower. You know, it's looming over you. But if it was, within a mile? You might not buy your dream home if you were to find it there because the water tower was that close? If somebody finds a name for that, put it in the comment section, because I'm really curious. Chris says, I have a fear of angry dogs. By the way, I love dogs. But just mean dogs. Dog biting. Dog bites are my biggest fear. I used to get attacked by a neighbor's dog too often on the way home from elementary school. Got attacked by a pit bull once. I guess that's where it stems from. Is that irrational? Well, again, I don't know if that's irrational. If I hear a dog bark while on a neighborhood walk with the wife, she says I push her. Push her in the direction of the barking. I would definitely defend her if she was attacked. I guess, hopefully not. Time will tell. You know what you remind me of, Chris? You remind me of those people that go into the haunted houses with friends, and they grab their buddies and literally hold them forward as they turn the corner, using their loved ones as a shield for whatever might come out from behind the curtain. And I'm guilty. I think I've done it many, many times. Oh, I'm a big man till I get in there, and then I turn into a screaming child. Area code 775. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth, it's Kat.
Kat, thanks so much for calling the show. We're talking about rational people and irrational fears. What do you think?
I've got a couple for you. Wes is scared of clowns.
That's a common one.
It is. It's very common. He's terrified of clowns, no specific reason. Me, on the other hand, I'm scared of getting pregnant again.
Oh, stop. Would you just... I'm talking
Serious?
about goosebumps. I'm talking about hairs on the back of your neck. I'm not talking about like, geez, I sure don't want to get pregnant again. Come on.
Okay. Spiders and needles.
I buy that. Spiders are often... I saw... What was the movie? It wasn't a good show. What was it called? It was the one with Jeff Daniels.
Arachnophobia.
Arachnophobia.
Somebody tried to make me sit down and watch it, and I kicked him in the nuts.
Well, I heard it said once that they made too much of the fear factor about the spiders being poisonous. That's not what makes spiders scary. What makes them scary is the spindly legs, the movement, that whole arachnid gait that they have. And they've got those little beady eyes.
Ugh. And Wes said the movie that you were originally looking for was Mars Attacks, from the person talking about the gray aliens, I think.
Yeah, but Mars Attacks was a comedy. I'm trying to think of like an alien movie that they played it straight, and it was Little Green Men. Kind of an X-Files kind of thing, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll think about it. Kat, you tell Wes hi, and you guys take care of yourself, okay?
All righty. Take care.
All right, take it easy.
Bye.
There were some gray aliens, I think, in the X-Files film, weren't there? One of them. Maybe both of them. Rebecca said, I'm scared of outhouses. I avoid them except when absolutely desperate. Now, what's that about? That could be a number of different levels. Figure it's an outhouse, you're probably in a remote area. They don't have indoor plumbing, so you're in the outhouse. You're in a shack. You're in a box. There's claustrophobia, right? You're in a wooden box. The door is closed. You can't see out. You're over a large hole in the earth filled with all manner of disgusting whatever that you cannot see. Outhouses largely don't have electricity. They're not lit. You can't really turn on the light in there. The outhouse works on a number of levels, doesn't it, Rebecca? A number of levels. Adam says, I have an illogical fear of water. I can't even ski or tube in a lake without having a panic attack due to thinking there's a gigantic sea beast lurking under me. I guess that's a common thing. A sea beast, or maybe a 747. Yeah. Had another Adam send a message and said, I'm scared of slow-moving propellers. Or turbines, like wind turbines or the propellers of big ships. They give me the creeps. I'm just digesting that. Back to the switchboard, area code 315. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
This is Shelley.
Shelley, thanks so much for calling the show. We're talking about rational people and irrational fears. Are you guilty? Do you have something?
Yeah, I don't like calling hours. I've always found that very morbid. But the irrational part comes in, I believe, watching television or movies and just seeing someone in a coffin. That really creeps me out. I don't like it, and I always have to turn the channel or go in another room.
Are you afraid of death?
No, not at all. It's always seemed morbid to me, always since I was a child, and just seeing it on TV, even I know they're not really dead, it really creeps me out really bad.
So you're probably not the one who goes to the viewings when someone passes away.
Never. No, I don't know what I'm going to do when I lose my parents. I'm still running that through my head.
Wow. Fear of coffins. That's another note I'm going to have to make. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Well, have a happy Halloween, and thanks for listening. I appreciate you.
All right. You too.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Tegan said, death and needles. Both are needed in life. I'm screwed. Ashton says, you know how some people can't stand to touch styrofoam? I've got that with cardboard. I gag if I touch it with my bare skin. One of my friends thought I was joking and proceeded to hold me down and rub a box all over me. Instant panic attack. Philip said he's got an irrational fear of large pool drains. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one, right? Because the pool drain can suck you in. They're on the deep end of the pool, 8 foot down. You go take that deep dive, you are this close to being sucked into the abyss and never seen again. Joni said, I don't really know when it started, but over my short, almost 17 years, I developed a fear of looking out windows at night. As a young child, I was very afraid of aliens. I used to think they would come down from the skies and hover with their saucers outside my window. I can't say where this thought developed from. It just did. I never quite recovered from it. I cannot sleep or really even be in a room at night if the blinds are not closed. Wouldn't you want to see out, though? The blinds are closed. Anything can be out there. I don't really know if it's irrational, but I sure get some rather odd reactions from people when I talk about it. It's not really what people expect to hear when they ask what your worst fears are. This fear is actually a close second behind needles. Man, needles are a common thread. Obviously, I think clowns are probably the number one. What do they call the fear of clowns? I think I looked it up, but I don't see it in my notes. Fear of clowns. Coulrophobia. C-O-U-L-R-O phobia. NPR has a picture of Pennywise from Stephen King's It in an article that talks about modern scary clowns and the phobias that go along with them. Of course, I also think of John Wayne Gacy, the notorious real-life serial killer who often dressed up as a clown. I think of the clown from It. I think of the clown from Poltergeist. Clowns are scary. Emily said, I hate bridges. I'm always terrified they'll collapse while driving on them. It's like the story of the Mothman. Right? The Mothman was the creature that appeared supposedly to people and gave them the advanced knowledge that the bridge would collapse, and one day it did. It had been foreseen by the Mothman. Deb said, mine's pretty irrational. Animals who were once alive but are now dead and stuffed with sawdust. Yeah, oh yeah. Taxidermied animals are terrifying. It's like those people who have, and you will never find a bigger dog and cat lover than I am. I've had dogs and cats my whole life. I sob almost uncontrollably whenever one of these animals, these family members, dies. Not once would I ever consider stuffing it and keeping it in my home. In memoriam, it's Muffy, the kitty, over in the corner, eyes wide open, staring at me. I think not. You'd never sleep. Imagine having company over. Oh, look. Look, it's a little rat dog. Small enough we could put her on the fireplace mantle. No way. I do not get it. I understand memories, photographs. Yeah. I get it. I do not get stuffing the beast and keeping it around the house. Area code 256. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
Benjamin.
Benjamin, thanks for calling the show. We're talking about rational people and irrational fears. What do you have for us tonight?
I would say that my irrational fear would have to be tornadoes. I know that the statistical likelihood of me being in my area, in the 256 area code, of dying of a tornado is unlikely, but they still give me the chills, and whenever I hear a tornado siren, it just makes me defense up for no rational reason.
I don't think that's an irrational. I mean, I get it. I understand statistically, right? There's probably a greater chance of a satellite falling on you than you being hit by a twister. Yeah. But You know, historically, tornadoes have done a lot of damage.
I can understand you being from the Oklahoma area.
Yeah, we had our share here. In fact, I'm just now putting the finishing touches on a video about Rebecca Bitzman, who was on CNN with Wolf Blitzer last May. She survived the May 20th, 2013 twister. Her whole house was just demolished. And, of course, as I'm editing the video, I've just got goosebumps seeing the before and after photographs.
I heard Bill Maher talk about that. I was like, oh, what do you know? Atheists. What a surprise. They're actually nice.
Well, my problem with it is that Wolf Blitzer, this is totally off on a bunny trail here. My problem is Wolf Blitzer is a professional journalist. He's got no business on live television invoking God, right? You must have thanked the Lord that you survived. And of course, she's looking at him like, well, what kind of question is that? I mean, how about you must be grateful? I get that. You must be very thankful that you and your son survived the incident. But to invoke God is so incredibly presumptuous, especially from a journalist of his caliber. And Rebecca addresses that in the video. It should release here in the first week of November, so keep an eye out for it, okay?
All right. Thank you very much, Seth.
Take it easy. Thanks for listening so much to the show. Notice I got a slug in for the new video, huh? How's that? That's pretty slick, wasn't it? Well, after the Dawkins video, I was wondering exactly what I wanted to produce next, and I had the opportunity last month to sit down and get Rebecca on camera to just tell her story, because people knew her story in small ways. They read about it online. They might have even seen her speak at a few of the conferences. She had been out to Boston and some of the other events where she would go and talk about that day. But I had not yet seen one instance where people were able to really get into her story. And so I had the chance to sit down on camera, and we had a great time. We just had a great time. And that video is really, I think, going to move people. And I think it's going to encourage people. And I'm an encourager, right? I'm an encourager and I'm a storyteller. I'm not a great brain by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not the world's best anything, but I am an encourager, and I want people to come to the Thinking Atheist community, watch the videos, listen to the shows, come to the social media sites, and just be encouraged, to be emboldened. You're not alone. You're not crazy. It's okay to speak in your own voice. You know, if the people are going to go out and own the opportunity to be as religious as they want to be, they don't get to sit you in the corner and tell you to shut up. You have every right to own and live your own worldview. And if you are pursuing truth, you have nothing to apologize for. And Rebecca's story will embolden people in that way. I think it's really going to encourage folks. So anyway, it comes out in a few days. Forgive me for taking that little detour. Had a message in from Chris. He said he's got a phobia about reaching into mailboxes. Even if I can see inside the mailbox, I still look carefully at the contents and then snatch the mail out very quickly, just in case. I can see that. I can see that. Right? You might not get it back. Crystal said, I know it's stupid, but I really don't like walking on street grates. That's where Pennywise lives. Pennywise the clown. We just mentioned him from Stephen King's It. I know, quote unquote, no, he doesn't exist, but I promise I fear him way more than any hellfire. Well, of course. How do you get over those in women's shoes is what I want to know, right? You've got the little heel things coming down, and you walk on a street grate. How does that happen? How do you not get stuck? How do you not walk out of your shoes? This is a weird man question. I have no idea how this is done. I've got flat soles. I step on it. I walk on it. I see these little bitty heels, and I go, what keeps you from sticking? Kate said, apart from being 27 years old and still being afraid of the dark, being fearful of being alone in the house when my husband's away for work, and being afraid to take out the garbage at night, are among the rational fears I have. Yeah, I mean, it depends on your neighborhood, depends on, I don't think anybody wants to go out and be in the dark when they're alone. An irrational fear I've had since I was a child, she says, and only recently managed to get rid of, is flushing the toilet with myself still in the bathroom. When I was little, my granddad used to tell me that if I flushed the toilet while still sitting on the john, the toilet demon would come up out of the hole in the toilet bowl, grab my butt cheeks with his claws, and pull me down into hell. Your grandfather told you this? called social services. Torturing a poor child on the toilet. He and his father and uncles used to think it was hilarious watching me burst out of the bathroom door while trying to pull up my pants, trying to stay as far from the toilet as possible. There were nights when I was so afraid that I had an accident in bed. Jeez, Kay, you're breaking my heart. I had an accident in bed because I didn't want to get up in the night to go to the toilet, and I fell asleep while holding it. When after 3 or 4 years of this, my granddad realized that I was still afraid, he tried to explain to me that it was just a joke to make me take less time in the bathroom, but the fear had set in. And I still did the flush and bolt every time. Even as a teenager, I was never comfortable in the bathroom. Now I'm pretty normal. But even up until I was 22 or 23, flushing the toilet when home alone was unnerving and made me jumpy out of habit. It sounds pretty silly, doesn't it? Kate, thanks so much for sending that in. I have a visual in my mind. I'm mad at your grandfather for doing that to you. Like, I don't mind it. You know, look, grandpas can be uncles, grandpas, they can be ornery, mischievous. But to let it go on for years... Can't do that. And toilets can be scary. Last week we talked about the ghost. What was her name? Was it Catherine? Christine? The one who was pushed down the hole into the sewer, broke her neck and died, and now she could come up through the toilet? Yeah, she's out there. Victoria said outhouses and whatever horror movie image may be lurking in them. That's becoming a common thing. Will says he's afraid of falling, which must not be confused with the fear of heights, which is a totally different thing. 35,000 feet in an airplane doesn't bother me in the least. 50 stories up, standing on a glass platform hanging off the side of a building would make me mess myself both ways and make me lose my lunch simultaneously. Will, I totally get it. Like I'm on a plane sometimes almost every week, right? And I'm totally comfortable. But if I go up in the Paris Tower in Las Vegas and I'm looking out, I'm enjoying the view, but I am holding on with white knuckles for dear life to the rail, even though there's fence all around me, even though I know I'm safe. I've always wondered what the sensation of falling a long distance would be like. I have been invited on several occasions to go skydiving. Hell no. Okay? No. 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 Don't even bother sending me the email. I'm not doing it. You know, the joke is, why would you jump out of a perfectly good airplane? Well, that's exactly how I feel. And I have heard that when you skydive, some people have said, well, it's like you're flying, and that's totally bogus. I have heard that you just feel like you're falling, which is at what, 100? What's terminal velocity? 120? Depending on your posture in the air, depending on how much wind resistance there is, you are falling. And I wonder about those first few seconds out of the plane. You got your gear, you packed your parachute, you've gone through the safety protocols, you are now up in the sky, and they open the door to the airplane. You're on the tether. It's your turn. Now, whether you're going alone or whether it's a tandem jump, you are falling. What's that like? What's that sensation like? It makes my heart skip to think about it, really. Normally, the sensation is you fall and land, right? You land somewhere. Not here, you just keep going. Does it balance out and all of a sudden you feel sort of liberated? The wind's going past you. You can see all around. Maybe you do have a sensation of flying, or do you feel that feeling that you get when you are lying in bed and you're dreaming that you're falling, and you wake up in bed and you're flopping around like a fish? That weird panicked falling feeling? That's terrifying. Is it like that when you skydive? I don't know if that's an irrational fear. I mean, we don't have wings. We weren't meant to fly or fall. Not like that. Area code 715. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
This is Scott.
Scott, thanks for calling this show. What do you have for us tonight?
Well, I consider myself a pretty rational person, but my wife has her share of irrational fears for sure.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Just throw her under the bus on live radio.
She gave me permission, so...
All right, I feel better about it now.
Go.
All right, go ahead. Tell me the story.
So when we've been married now about 10 years, and it was a couple years in, I found out that she had this odd fear of red circles, and especially like in a tight pattern. My idea of the origin is probably something like chicken pox or something similar to that. Well, I was, the typical class clown in high school when we met. So I decided, I'd go out and get some red stickers and put them all over the console of her vehicle. And
what are you doing?
What
are you doing to the poor woman? She's got a fear of round things, and you cover the car dash with stickers?
Oh, it gets better, because the next day I got called out to an emergency. I had to leave, completely forgot about it. So I get a phone call from her, absolutely in tears, hysterically crying about these red circles. I'm like 2 hours away. She's got to get to work. So I had to talk her through removing all of these tiny little red sticker circles. It took like 20 minutes. It was an experience. So
what is her first name? What's her first name? Janelle?
Her name, yeah.
Janelle, I would like to apologize on behalf of your husband, who was so incredibly inconsiderate to you, to take your irrational fear and stick it in your face while he was out of town. I just want to say how sorry he is, and he'll never do it again.
I found other buttons to push after that.
What are you doing?
But yeah.
Come on, you're supposed to have her back, and you're throwing her phobias at her? That's terrible. That's terrible.
What do you do?
Do you have any phobias? Do you have any irrational fears?
Not since I was a child. My biggest thing was the monsters under the bed. So I would take a running jump into bed every night. I would try to stay away from like 3 feet circumference around the bed.
Yeah.
I think it was that Little Monsters movie with the guy from Fred Savage, was it?
You got to keep your feet far away enough away from the bed so that the little hands, the little claws that come out, won't be able to reach you. So if you jump in, you've created sort of a boundary of protection there. I get that.
Exactly.
I get that. Awesome. Thanks for the call. I appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks much.
All right. Bye. Janelle, if we find out what his phobia is, I'm going to have someone email you. All right. We're going to find out what it is. We're going to send the information to you, and payback is a bitch. Area code 845. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth. This is Joe and Scene from New York.
Thanks so much for calling the show tonight. We're talking about rational people and irrational fears.
Yes. You were talking earlier about skydiving. What does that feel like? I've actually gone skydiving just once. And I can tell you, it's pretty scary. Like it's probably the single most terrifying thing I've done in my life.
Well, walk me through it here. I mean, I don't want to make it the skydiving show, but you're in the plane and you know that as you're climbing in altitude that you're getting closer and closer to the point where you are going to jump. Is your heart about to explode out of your chest?
Well, for me, yeah. I mean, when you get to the door of the plane, I went tandem. I had somebody strapped to me, and I hung my legs out the door, and I just looked like it was like that moment, like, okay, there's the earth, and then you fall towards it.
And
well, come on, paint the picture with words for me.
I was like, whoa!
You jump out, and does your heart go into your throat? Do you have that sensation of falling that finally balances out when you hit terminal velocity? What's it like?
It felt like falling the whole time until the ripcord pulled and the parachute deployed. It felt like just falling, like going down on a roller coaster. It felt like that, just not stopping. And that lasted for like, I think 90 seconds. And it felt like a really long time. And I actually thought to myself, am I breathing? And I had to actually be like, take a breath. Take a breath. And I breathed in. And it's really loud. It's like sticking your head out the car window on a highway.
Yeah.
It's just so loud, the wind blowing past you that fast. So, well, it's not even the wind blowing past you. You're falling through the air.
Yeah, you're blowing past the wind. Hey, what about your ears? Do your ears pop just uncontrollably as you continue to drop altitude?
I didn't notice that. I was given one job: pay attention to the altimeter, and when you get down to a certain height, pull the ripcord. Well, when I started falling, I looked at the altimeter. I'm like, oh, I got plenty of time. There's tons of feet below me. And then like this cloud passed underneath us. We went through the cloud. And then I felt him like jiggling around back there. I'm like, what's he doing? And I'm like, oh my God. And I looked at the altimeter and we were like hundreds of feet below where I was supposed to pull the ripcord.
I'm sorry. You lost me at going through the cloud. You lost me. Look, you're dropping at 120 miles an hour and there's a white cloud beneath you. You are going into the abyss, right? You're officially going into a membrane where you cannot see anything around you and you will come out the other side. That is terrifying. Terrifying.
Yes, we fell straight through a cloud. That was actually my favorite part. I saw the cloud moving in, and it blocked the view of the ground. And then we went through the cloud, and cloud feels like fog. It's just like going through fog at really high speed. And then it suddenly broke. It just cleared, and I could see the ground again.
Would you do it again?
Absolutely.
Really? You got a taste for it. You got the rush. You got the endorphins, and you want to go back, huh?
Yeah. It was definitely fun, even though it was scary. I mean, like I said, I had dreams about it afterwards. I'd wake up at night like, oh my God.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing. Anything else?
No.
Thanks so much for calling the show and sharing your experience. You actually sort of helped solve the mystery for me. Take care and have a great week, okay?
All right, no problem. You too.
Right, see you later.
Bye.
Area code 716. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
It's Paul.
Paul, thanks for waiting. Thanks for calling. What do you have for us tonight?
Well, actually, I had more of a question. The subjects of fears. I guess I wanted to know the answer to more like the elephant in the room. I mean, we're all, a lot of atheists on the show. Does anybody still have the fears? I guess I'm asking you. Do you have the fear sometimes that you're wrong about that decision in your life?
Am I wrong about rejecting God and religion?
Exactly.
Well, I made the decision to be religious based on emotion. I made the decision to walk away from religion and faith and superstition based on reason, right? It was because I came to a point where emotion was not driving whether or not I was going to embrace it. And even though I had those deep-seated fears of, what if I'm wrong? I sure don't want to go to hell. And it took me about a year and a half, 2 years to sort of get that buzzing insect out of my head. Now I don't have any fear at all.
For a while,
in fact, the more I look at the religion that I left and the religions like it, and the more I look at the people who are attributing natural occurrences to supernatural phenomenon, their specific one, cherry-picked out of thousands, the more I am actually assured. I've never really felt more comfortable in my whole life. Do you struggle with a kind of fear about it, or are you just sort of taking the temperature of the rest of the room?
Well, I was kind of curious of your opinion on it. For me, it's one of those things that I put in the category of it is an irrational fear, that little sensation of like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not doing it right? What if I am being judged or something like that, and I messed it all up? It's more like a fear of failure almost. So maybe it hits me like incredibly infrequently, like once in many years.
We're human beings. We're very capable of irrationality. And honestly, being a non-theist doesn't mean we're not flawed, fallible humans with our own biases and with our own issues that we have to work through. We just Now we use reason, we use an evidence-based life to navigate through these irrational sort of things that go bump in the night to find out what we can genuinely hold to. We actually hold to the truth despite what our emotions say, which is a much more satisfying way to live. But are all of us susceptible to those types of biases, those types of irrationalities? Of course. But now we are cognizant of what they are. We understand them better. We have methods to get through them, and that's how we deal. And that's my take on it.
Cool.
All right, man. Thanks for calling the show. Thanks for listening. Means a lot.
All right. Thanks, Seth.
Let's do one more real fast before we finish up with an email. Area code 724. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
Hi, Seth. This is Molly.
Molly, thanks for calling the show. It's great to have you. We're talking about irrational fears. Do you have one?
I actually have two of them. There's this one that's been bothering me for years, and I have no idea why. I live in a train town, and I'm terrified of trains. It's not even like I'm afraid of like being hit by them or anything. It's like the noises that they make, and like I hate being by a train whenever they're crossing.
Oh, trains can be scary.
Waiting at an intersection.
I don't think being hit by the train is what makes them frightening. You know, there's the size, it's the rush of wind, it's the noise, it's the ghost conductor.
Yeah, I guess, but it's like this thing that's got me like grinding my teeth whenever I have to wait at an intersection, and I actually can't. My mom, her house is right above train tracks, and I can't even sleep at her house without some kind of like really loud ambient noise, like a fan.
So when the train blows the horn, right? When it's blowing the train whistle.
No, everything. It's everything about it. It just totally freaks me out.
I find something kind of relaxing about it. We used to, when I was growing up, until I was 6, we lived right next to a train stop, crossing, whatever you call it. And you kind of got used to it. You know, it goes by on a regular basis, and there's something about the clickety-clack of the wheels on the tracks and the sound of the train going by that I found sort of comforting. I'm not really sure what that's about. But
I don't know. It's the exact opposite for me, though.
You don't live next to a train now, do you?
Well, I'm in college right now, and my college is, I live in southwestern Pennsylvania and in a train town typically, and now I'm in northwestern Pennsylvania, so there's no trains around here.
Good for
you.
But
whenever I go home, I have a really hard time sleeping. The other fear that I have, and a couple other people on the chat have it too, is Arachnophobia, which is a fear of pregnancy. And it's not like I've had kids or anything before. Like I said, I'm a college kid, but pregnancy and like pregnant women kind of freak me out a little bit.
All right, so somebody's
I know,
expecting.
It's really weird.
You're at a party, right? You're at the Christmas party or the holiday, whatever, and someone comes up and she is, I don't know, 6 months along.
Like visibly pregnant, and it's just so, like, I know it's not unnatural, but it seems really unnatural to me. It's really weird, and it freaks me out.
Pregnancy seems unnatural to you.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's just weird. Like, it's just it's almost like an alien kind of concept, because it's like there's something growing and living in you, and it just really freaks me out.
Yeah, I buy that. That's a rational fear. That's a good one. Molly, thanks so much for calling the show tonight. Much appreciated.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you later. On a separate note, I always feel a little bit sorry for a lot of pregnant women who have to endure the rest of us. What is it about someone who is with child that makes the rest of us feel like that we can cross all acceptable social boundaries? I have seen total strangers walk up to someone who is obviously with child, and they'll be like, "Oh my goodness, when are you due?" And they'll politely give we're going to give birth in May. Baby's due in May. And then they will get on their hands and knees, a total stranger, and stick their ear up against the poor woman's belly. Oh, can I hear him? Oh, huge violation of personal bubble right there. And I think the pregnant woman must be going, what? I'm walking here. If people reach down to stick their hands on your stomach, I always thought that was just odd. She's not a science fair project. She's with child. I don't know. Got off on another tangent there. Sorry about that. You know, the one caller we had a few minutes ago is the conversation we had really did help us hit on the head. They're called irrational fears for a reason, and some of those I don't think are. They're not just crazy. They're born of something. Maybe we had an experience when we were younger. Maybe we had some story drilled into us when we were kids. Maybe we had an experience as an adult that really shook us up. Let's say you're in an accident involving a certain type of vehicle. I know people who don't like to drive around semi-trucks. They have a phobia. They're on the highway and a semi-truck drives alongside and it's going past and it just terrifies them. They have a fear of storms. Well, maybe they went through a major event at some time in their lives. Maybe there's a reason for it. But there are also ways out of it. There's an article in Psychology Today that says, Overcoming Phobias, 6 Important Principles. It was published on the 27th of last year by Frederick Newman, MD. The 6 steps are this. In order to overcome a phobia, the affected person has to spend time publicly trying to do things that everyone else can do effortlessly. Phobics are easily embarrassed, but recovery requires that others find out about their phobias. The second principle is practicing to overcome a phobia, which takes time, sometimes a lot of time, and repetition. The third principle is the things phobics are afraid of are not so awful when they do happen. Right? Like the person who's afraid of water. I'm out there on the ocean. Oh my God, I'm out on the ocean and I can't see what's underneath me. Nothing happens. It's not all that awful. It was in my head. Principle 4, you can judge progress by what you can do, not by how you feel. Another great relation of evidence over emotion. Principle 5, phobics run into stuck points from time to time. They get stuck. Using a friend or an aide or a helper makes all the difference. And finally, 6, sometimes the very things phobics are afraid of give them the most satisfaction when they are no longer afraid. Like being afraid of chocolate. One day you might actually have someone going, this stuff's delicious. Amanda sent an email I'm going to finish out the show with tonight. She said this, I'm a new listener, just started over the past few weeks. The first episode I heard was, You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It was perfect, just what I needed to hear at the time. And since then, I've been hooked. If I may digress, by the way, that's become a hugely popular show. I think that show alone is at 150,000. People just seem to really need to hear that. And if you're at a point in your life when you need to be encouraged, reminded, everybody around me is praying to the invisible sky parent, and they think I'm nuts. Everyone tells me I'm broken. Everybody's pawing at me. They're driving me crazy. That kind of thing going on in your life, look up the show on Blog Talk Radio or iTunes or wherever. You're not alone. You're not crazy. Back to Amanda's letter. She said this, I was excited about this podcast coming up because it's been on my mind. I've only just started to question my faith in the past year, and honestly, I still don't know what I think or believe. I can't call myself a Christian, but I'm hesitant to call myself an atheist. I come from a Christian family. My dad is a pastor, and I've been involved in church for most of my life. My husband is studying to be an ordained minister, and I used to work at a church. Since I was about 9, I've been afraid of dark hallways, evil spirits, and the Frank Peretti-type demons that might be out there. If you don't know who Frank Peretti is, he's a hugely popular author who writes about the end times and the devil and demons and the tribulation. This Present Darkness, look that up, Frank Peretti. It was because I was allowed to read those books at such a young age, and I had nightmares for years after. As an adult, my beliefs changed, and I decided that demons weren't real and I shouldn't be afraid. But I would still secretly hurry up the stairs or sleep with a light on when my husband was gone. I found that even when I stopped believing in hell, I was still afraid of the monsters that I'd read about as a child. For some reason, even putting my foot over the bed was scary. Apparently, I thought there were monsters under my bed. Several months ago, I started to question what was left of my faith as I moved away from the magic, the monsters seem to have gone too. I was alone every night for a year while my husband was deployed, and I never had to put the light on. I never scurried up the stairs like a skittish mouse, and I just wasn't afraid anymore. I still have some irrational parental fears, like my kids falling downstairs. I don't think that's irrational at all, Amanda. I think that's a natural parental protective instinct. Or getting run over by a rogue stampede of cattle. That may be irrational. Unless you live on the dude ranch, I don't know if the cattle thing is going to happen. But the falling down the stairs and the child being harmed, I totally get it. She says, but the secret ones I never told anyone seem to have evaporated along with my beliefs. Thanks for all you do, Seth. Your podcast is informative, open, and kind. I love your attitude and your desire for real conversation. Keep up the good work. Amanda, you made my show and you made my week. Thank you so much for a great email and a great cap to the show. Be listening next Tuesday night as we talk about a manual for creating atheists. Is there a template, a blueprint, and do we want to be creating atheists? Anyway, next Tuesday night, 6 o'clock Central, the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Take care.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And visit our website for resources, links, contact information, the editor's blog, and more. thethinkingatheist.com.